Welcome Ahmad Rivera-Wagner, candidate for Wisconsin's 90th Assembly District, to this interview sponsored by Joshua and the League of Women Voters of Greater Green Bay. We will be asking 6 questions with time at the end for you to add anything else that you want the voters to know. Are you ready?
I am.
Please tell us about yourself and why you're running.
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank the League of Women Voters and Joshua for putting this together. It's always an important part of our democracy to hear from other candidates. As you said, my name is Ahmad Rivera-Wagner. I'm running for the 90th, and I'm running because I love Green Bay. We've watched how conspiracy theories and chaos have trickled down from national politics and affected our local politics, where we have folks spend a year trying to ban the pride flag instead of trying to build housing, or folks refusing to concede elections. I'm running because what I know about Green Bay is that we are neighborly, we take care of each other, and we invest in the future that we believe in. I've been doing that both as the mayor's chief of staff, from projects like JBS to the Conservation Corps, but I've also was raised by a single mom who had me at 16, and the reason I got into politics was to help her form a union. What we've been doing is that, my whole life, is that we've been coming together across all kinds of different boundaries to get things done. Most people don't know that my mom had me at 16, but that she was homeless with me for the first 10 years of my life. Programs like Habitat for Humanity, which brings local communities, cities together with volunteers of all different stripes, helped us build the house that my mom still lives in to this day. We need more of those types of partnerships that look past the pettiness and politics and focuses on progress. And I'm proud to be running to represent this incredible community to do just that.
The first question is, most people agree that the aging Green Bay and Waupun prisons must be closed. Would you support these closures without building a new prison? Please explain.
So we know that we're dealing with 2 issues here. One is criminal justice reform. We know that there's too many prisoners going into all of these facilities, partly because we have not really addressed some of the issues that we see. For example, folks who maybe have bad behavior but can afford bail are getting back out into the streets and recommitting, while people who are poor and struggling, who might have committed petty crimes, are stirring in. Or things like the legalization of marijuana, which our neighbors across the lake and other parts of the Midwest have already decriminalized. We know that criminal justice reforms like that will overall reduce the prison population, and we need to be leaning into that type of criminal justice reform. Additionally, we do need to talk about the modernization of buildings. People who've committed crimes, including those who are going to maximum security prisons, we do need to find a pathway for them to be held and potentially have reentry if that's possible. We know that the jail in Alloway, just to rehab it would be $500 million. We need to think of smart solutions to make sure that we are housing people who've committed crimes, but we need to make sure that we create room and space elsewhere before we get rid of that building. But we also have to combine that with criminal justice reform, like bail reform and legalization of marijuana. I think that people in Green Bay and the legislature can walk and chew gum at the same time, that we can tackle these issues simultaneously. And we've seen how overcrowding at this prison has caused problems. We've seen that there are 20 to 100 over the amount of prisoners that should be there. People are living in squalid conditions. We've seen the staffing there to be less than 80% full. And so we need to do something to reform that immediately.
The second question is, the current lack of affordable housing is a huge issue for so many families. What are your thoughts regarding the recipients of rental vouchers being a protected class and imposing regulations on landlords in regards to how much they are able to charge for monthly rent? Other states put caps on how much landlords are allowed to charge. Would you be in support of either of these changes?
Yes, and. First, what I'd like to say is that, as I said earlier, one of the reasons I'm so passionate about housing is that as someone who experienced homelessness, having a home creates a level of stability that really can change your life. That I was able, from being a homeless kid to being one of the first graduates in my family from college, to being able to be the chief of staff for the mayor of Green Bay, to ultimately be running for office, is all part and partial to not only my mom's hard work, but having a home that was stable for us to be able to live our lives. And so I deeply care about building housing. One of the major projects that I worked on for the mayor of Green Bay is the JBS development, which is the largest community-led housing development in the city's history to bring more housing because we're experiencing a housing crisis here in Green Bay. Whether you're a C-suite executive or a frontline worker, you are competing for rental and home ownership in the city. And the number one way for us to address that is to build more supply. I do think that renters, or sources of income is the term they usually use, should be a protected class. We did attempt to pass this at the Green Bay Common Council and were rejected by folks who were uninterested in doing that work. I do think we need to revisit that. We need to be doing more about fair housing and equitable housing, making sure people aren't being discriminated against. But the number one way for us to create more affordability is for us to build more supply across the income spectrum and create more options for people, whether that's rental options or home ownership options. So I'm deeply excited to go to the state legislature to work on housing and be dedicated. And one of the things I also like about housing is that good housing policy benefits everyone, not just Republicans, not just Democrats, whether they vote or not or they're vulnerable. Having good housing policy makes a difference for everyone, and I'm running to make sure everyone improves in the city of Green Bay.
The next question is, we believe that democracy works best when citizens can interact with their elected representatives between elections. If elected, how do you plan to remain engaged?
Fantastic question. I do think we can tell a lot about people by how they start, before they're in, and what it looks like for them actually in their office. So what I've been excited to be as the mayor's chief of staff is I also served as his community liaison. I have supported all his external activities and relationships with nonprofit leaders, community groups. We've made ourselves incredibly available to be working in partnership with the community that I want to represent, but also on everyday issues, from getting a tree limb cut in your yard to very serious things like building a housing development. What I've been doing for the last 4 years in this city is working with the community. I've also spent a lot of time and effort making sure that I talk to voters in this community. Thousands of doors knocked, participation in forums. It matters that we showcase who we are, what we believe, so that voters can make an informed choice. If elected, I would make sure that I have office hours throughout the community, from our new City East Center to local public libraries like we are here today. But I also think it matters that we bring people and we go to where they're at. I want to create room and space for people to participate in the lawmaking process. I want to make sure that we're bringing hearings here into the city of Green Bay, that we're making it easier for people to participate in the state legislative process. And so I'm excited about what I think are good ideas, but I'm also open to things that I haven't thought of yet. We're thinking about newsletters and emails, social media and engagement, but we're also thinking about fun things. I'd love to have block parties with community groups. I'd love to think of really smart ways to work with people. So I totally believe that our democracy is better when more folks are involved, and I look to do that as the next state assembly person.
What is your position on the current reproductive health laws in Wisconsin, and what, if anything, would you change?
I want to start with, I do not believe that the government has a role to play in women governing their bodies, period. That in the toughest moments that people have around their health care, they shouldn't have to consult a politician. They should be talking to their doctor, their partner, and their faith. And it shouldn't be whether it's a poll-tested issue for people who may not have the acumen to even understand those issues. So I want to make sure I'm abundantly clear that I believe that it's up to a woman to make the choices about her body and her health care, and there's no role for the government to play in making that decision for her. I believe that the law that we currently have on books, thanks to the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which is a 1848 law before many women had the right to even vote, is still in place. And while there have been made some exceptions, I believe that that should be repealed, and that we should allow for a women to make the choice for their bodies and the future of how they want to do reproductive health. As you know, that these kind of laws don't just stop abortion, they actually create all kinds of issues for women's health care across the spectrum. We need to trust women and how for them to take care of their own bodies. And I don't think I'm an expert in that, and I don't think that I should be legislating that, but we should be legislating freedom to choose, and that is what I stand by.
What is your position on school vouchers in Wisconsin?
No. We have incredible public schools here. Green Bay is having a growing and diverse population in our public schools. Over 50% of color, as we've seen our community change and shift. They're doing incredible things like apprenticeship programs and community schools like at Howe Elementary. Our schools have been doing a lot with less for a very long time. And there has been a formula that punishes them because of programs like the voucher program that takes funding away from public schools when we absolutely desperately need that, especially in days like today, in the moments that we're now, where schools often have to go to referendum because of broken formulas by the state legislature and an over-reliance on supporting school voucher programs that allow kids to go to programs that can discriminate, that are not held to the same standard and don't have the same level of transparency as our traditional public schools. And so I think we should not only fix our funding formula, we should understand and make sure we update our special education funding formula for our local public schools. But we do think that voucher programs is just not a helpful support system for trying to educate our community here in Green Bay. We need to fully fund our public schools. And if I had the option, I would oppose and end the school voucher program.
Our last question is, what do you think about the fairness and integrity of Wisconsin elections, and what changes, if any, would you propose?
So this is a very personal issue to me. As many people may know, that during the 2020 election, while I was helping with volunteers and giving pizza to city employees, I was accused of stealing the election in 2020 for Joe Biden. They went on to stalk me and my husband, vandalize my car, send racist and homophobic death threats to me at work. We even had a sitting council member organize a January 6th rally at City Hall where they called for the Proud Boys, a white nationalist group, to come get me, the mayor, and what now would become the first black clerk in the city's history because they didn't like the results of the election. I deeply believe in our democracy. I know that the people and the poll workers who've been good stewards of our democracy deserve to be respected, protected, and honored, not attacked and undermined just because people don't like the results of their election. I plan on standing firmly and deeply in support of our election workers, our clerks across the state, and frankly, even conservative districts are seeing a huge upsurge in harassment because folks don't agree with the results of the election. That cannot be the status of our democracy. I believe in this country, I believe in Wisconsin, I believe in Green Bay, and I believe in the democracy that we exhibit. So I would be for funding our elections, making sure clerks have it easier to count ballots, like counting absentee ballots or opening them the day before an election. I support the modernization so that every municipality has all the tools they need, like Badger books, to be able to make sure that elections go faster, more efficiently. And I think we should hold accountable bad actors who are trying to interfere in the democratic process. We get to love our country, not just when we win. We have to love our country even when we lose elections. And so I would be proud to stand up for democracy.
Thank you. As we wrap up, Ahmad, please add anything else that you would like the voters to know.
Thank you so much for having me here again today. Joshua and the League of Women Voters, you've been spending an incredible amount of time making sure for years that we have opportunities to reach voters. One of the things that we didn't get to touch on that is very important to me is mental health supports in our system. We know that many families are struggling with folks who are either struggling with addiction or mental health, a combination thereof. We have a system that does not give us the tools, support, or funding to really address the mental health crisis in our country and in our state and in the city of Green Bay. I want to be a champion to make sure that people get the help and services they need to meet their moments, and when they are struggling and they may not know that they need help, that we have tools in our toolbox to help folks that are struggling with mental health and addiction. So I'm incredibly thankful to the League and everyone else for giving me the opportunity to talk more about these issues and more about the community.
Thank you, Ahmad. We have been speaking to Ahmad Rivera-Wagner, candidate for Wisconsin's 90th Assembly District. This ends our interview.